Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. I'm ready with my mate. I have rose mate today. I don't know if you can see the rose petals in there. Just started it now. Um, I love infusing the rose in the mate because it softens it. If you're a mate drinker, or those of you that are now becoming one, because I have the mate rose blend in the studio, it takes away some of that hype energy of the mate and just sort of like it really balances us out. So I find that the energy is really stable and it lasts really long and it's really, really nice. Okay, so good morning, good afternoon. Today, the IG Live is going to be about why our cycles. So this is going to be about our menstrual cycle. I went back and forth with so many topics and I have like so many amazing topics that I want to talk about. So I may have to do this more often because I'm getting feedback from you guys and I'm just really excited. And I'm actually even considering just bringing up the podcast again. So if you haven't checked out Grounding Ascension, that is the podcast that I used to do consistently until I opened the studio. So if you are guided to listen to some of those podcast episodes, there's a lot of good information on Grounding Ascension podcast. It's on all of the platforms. And there's a few actual podcasts that I would recommend if you are new to the menstrual cycle, if you're new to the energy of the divine feminine, go and check out those episodes because they are full of so much knowledge and so much good information. So what I'm going to be talking about today is not going to go into crazy deep like in the podcast, I go into a lot more deeper topics of menstrual cycles. I'm going to keep it more sort of intro 101 type conversation today because what I'm finding is that we just need to talk about this more, like just more. Like as women, as people with wombs, we just need to talk and understand what the menstrual cycle is and why it's actually important. Like it is actually one of the most, if not at least for me, the most important thing in my body. Okay, so we need to understand that because here's the thing. I'm finding that most of you ladies, I'm working with you, whether it's long distance mentoring or energy healing or in person, we're either shutting off the menstrual cycle or we're just completely controlling it, right, via all of the methods we've been given, or we're just like not really understanding why I have this thing happening in my body. And that's a huge gap because there's just too much missing information, and that missing information is causing a lot of pain in the body. It's causing a lot of hormonal disruption. It's causing a lot of I don't want to say immune system, but I can say like just health-wise, it's really affecting our overall health, that we're not having healthy, complete, natural cycles, okay? And just as a disclaimer, this is not to say this is good and this is bad. So everyone with their menstrual cycle, according to where you are and how you deal with it or not deal with it, you got to start from there. So I'm not saying you got to change everything. I'm saying let's talk about the conversation of a menstrual cycle and let's bring in what information is missing, okay? So if you have any questions throughout, just type them in. I'm going to be constantly looking to see if questions come in. Welcome, Valerie. So menstrual cycles, why are they important to even have, right? Because most of what I'm seeing is that they're being very regulated, controlled, or just completely like, I don't have one. Like, I just don't want to deal with it, okay? The function of a menstrual cycle is to regulate your body, okay? So think about it like this. Imagine if you just shut off your intestines. I don't want to deal with it. It just takes up too much time. Like, I don't want to have to go to the bathroom. Like, I'm just going to turn it off, right? What would happen? How long could you actually live? Okay. And I know it sounds like so extreme because the menstrual cycle works differently, but that's exactly what you're doing. So because we're eating daily, then the intestines are going to have to flush out daily, right? The thing with the menstrual cycle is that we're not consuming something that it needs to get rid of. We are absorbing. So the womb is an energetic magnet of our lifestyle. Okay? That's huge. I just want you to take that in for a second. The menstrual cycle is an energetic magnet of our life and our lifestyle. So even though we're not physically eating, again, I'm comparing it to the intestines, we're not physically eating something that needs to be moved through our body and excreted, we are taking in our environment, which will then be transmuted in our bodies, and then our menstrual flow, our menses, is what takes that and releases it out of our body. Okay? Does that make sense? Welcome. So, if we are shutting down our cycle, our menstrual cycle, our body is not able to process what we're taking in our lifestyle. Okay? So, what does that pertain to? That pertains to our emotions, the energy that we are taking in. So the feminine energy is very intuitive and very magnetic. So we take in our environment, we take in the people, the relationships, the conversations. So we're taking all of that in. We're also taking in the emotions of the other, of the people around us. If you could imagine like cats, right? This is why the feline is considered the symbol of the feminine, right? Because it's the same thing. A cat will literally take in the energy, transmute and alchemize it, and then release it. That is literally what your menstrual cycle does. Now, if we want to talk about it on the physical, okay? The menstrual cycle is quite literally a hormone regulator. And our hormones are the basis, the actual foundation of our entire bodies. So you could be living the quote unquote healthiest magazine, wellness magazine lifestyle. If your hormones are off, your body's not going to function properly at its peak, right? This is really, really, really important to understand, because your hormones are the basis of your body's functions. It's how your energy gets regulated. It's how things are processed through the body. So we need that flow in the body to continue. And so if you think of the menstrual cycle as a dam, if you are closing off your menstrual cycle, you're quite literally just closing off that dam. And you're just building up. Water's just building up. And what I mean by water is what we're taking in, our lifestyle, our emotions, the conversations, the relationships, the energy. We're not allowing that water to move. It's just sitting there. And for those of you who have been on birth control or some form of regulating your menstrual cycle for months or for years or for decades, just imagine how much stagnation your body is holding. Okay? Now, a lot of this work, I just want to be clear, because a lot of it I've learned through the energetics of the feminine and the energetics of our body. So it's not like I'm a scientist in a lab and I'm telling you like your blood count and your mineral count. But I can tell you that most of the energy healings that I'm doing and most of the work that I'm doing revolves around being able to see the energetics of the womb, and it's not healthy as a collective. It's just not healthy. Like, yes, there's a rise in divine feminine energy, thankfully, and at the same time, it's just not enough. So we need to come back and understand, okay, so what if I have been controlling my menstrual cycle and I've had all this stagnation build up for all these years? So what's going to happen is at some point it's going to explode, okay? How does it explode? It's from the inside, because energetically it's like a boiling pot with a top on that you're not allowing it to open. You're not allowing that top to open. Ideally, your menstrual cycle would open every certain amount of days, right? Every cycle it would open, it would release the steam, and then it would come back in, okay? If you're not doing that, or if you're doing that in a controlled manner, because even if you're on birth control and you're allowing yourself to have a period every 28 days and you say, okay, now you're not allowing the natural flow of the menstrual cycle do what it's supposed to do. Because remember, our menstrual cycle is fluid. So anytime we get something fluid and we try to stick it inside a box and we're going to say, I'm going to control you because you're just a headache and I don't want to deal with you, you're quite literally shutting down the feminine in yourself, in your body. And that has repercussions. It starts to boil up, okay? It starts to shut off your heart space. First your solar plexus, your expressive center, then your heart space, then your throat chakra. And I'm only saying this because this is what I'm seeing in energy healings. And it's really important to share, because we think that just because we can't physically see it, it's not happening, right? This is what happens with like mental health, or just like things that everything technically starts on the energetic plane. So things are happening energetically, but you don't see them on the chart or on your body, so you think nothing's happening. Meanwhile, your menstrual cycle, if it's being controlled, manipulated, or stopped, it has tremendous repercussions on your body and your overall health. So let me know if I'm going off on too many tangents, because I can just go on, hello, good morning. I can just continue tangents all over the place. So our body, right, going back to the dam. So you're supposed to allow the body to naturally open up. And the reason why it's supposed to be natural is because as we take in our lifestyle, as we take in the environment, our conversations, our relationships, the stress in our environment, the stress of our lifestyles, right? And I'm not talking about just like work stress. I'm talking about physical stress. I'm talking about stress that you just have from like the world that we live in. It's creating a tremendous amount of stress in our nervous system. So your menstrual cycle is able to process that. This is why so many women that are bleeding naturally, they're finding huge fluctuations with their cycle, because we are processing the collective. It's kind of, if you're not thinking about your menstrual cycle as a part of the whole, it could sound a little bit out there, but let's start with your own body and your own life. You are literally a processor of your life and your immediate community. And so if your body's not allowing that to be moved through, that energy has to come in, be received by an energy field, and then be processed through the womb space, and then be released. By controlling it and manipulating, you're going to create blockages. And any kind of energy blockage, and this is just like common sense, traditional Chinese medicine. I mean, ancient medicine knows if you have energy blockage in your body, it's going to create stagnation, or it's going to create some kind of rupture in your whole holistic mind, body, spirit. I mean, it just is what it is, okay? So menstrual cycle is a hormone regulator. If your hormones are not balanced, then how do you expect to have a healthy body? How do you expect to create a healthy lifestyle? How do you expect to have a body that's going to consistently move with you through the ages, right? Through time, as you age? You can't, because the hormones are literally what keeps the floor clean. It's the way that you sweep the floor. If you're not sweeping the floor, after 20 years, after 10 years, after 1 month of not sweeping the floor, things accumulate, right? So I'm just trying to make it as sort of on the surface, as basic as possible, to start getting the word out as to why our cycles are so important, and why we need to talk about this with more women, and why we need to just bring more awareness to it, okay? All right. So I just want to make it clear that a lot of the times when there's birth control involved, or there's some kind of manipulation and control of the menstrual cycle, again, we're not allowing the body to take in the environment in its natural flow. So we're living, breathing entities. We're like it's like expecting to put a plant in a box and saying like you're only allowed to grow twice a month at this time. Like it just, everything has been so distorted that it just doesn't even make sense to do that, right? Because if you think of your body as a flowing being, right? Like this thing that just like breathes, it's inhaling, it's exhaling, it's flowing with its environment. It's like taking in, oh, way too much stress this month. Okay, I need to bring the period early because I need to release my body. Like that's the whole point. Your menstrual cycle will show you what's going on in your life. So if your body needs, you'll notice that too. This is why stress levels are so important. A lot of women under high stress will get their period even way quicker than they're supposed to, or way further out, because the body's trying to figure out like, when is it safe for me to release? When is it safe for me to cleanse, right? So if we're just manipulating that, you're not allowing the body to self-regulate and figure out its own levels of wellness. Does that make sense? So your body is a highly intelligent machine, okay? Like beyond what we think intelligence is, that's your body. Okay? So you're basically telling your body by controlling your menstrual cycle that it's okay, I got this. You don't know what you're doing, so I'm just going to manipulate you and tell you how to function. It doesn't work that way, okay? If we stop to listen to our bodies, your body will tell you what it needs. And this is the way that we use the menstrual cycle as a health indicator. So that's the next thing I want to talk about. The fact that your menstrual cycle is your health indicator, right? That's like your inner doctor. I mean, we're lucky enough to have a doctor within our own bodies. Let me drink some mate here because I get a little amped and I gotta slow down. So the way, and I'm gonna go a little bit more into now, like why is it important to, let's just say you are on birth control or whatever, it doesn't even matter. Like you don't have a cycle, you do. Let's go into understanding why it's important to keep a track, like keep a finger on where is my cycle, why do I need to understand my cycle, and where am I in that cycle, okay? Because, all right, let's say some of you got it, you're in your process, you're in your birth control, or you're not, or whatever, you're like, okay, so what else, all right? The next part of this conversation is understanding that you can start to use your menstrual cycle as a health indicator. And that's huge. Again, that's a practice that's been used from ancient times. We've just lost it because if you start to learn your cycle as a health indicator, you don't have to rely on external sources to tell you, to basically verify how your body's functioning. You can start to, and what I mean by that is that you can start to empower yourself in your own health journey. I'm not saying you're not going to need anybody else. We're always going to need other people and other things, but we've been so disempowered and so blinded that it's just one step coming back in and saying, okay, I have this thing that is supposed to do something in my body, right? Well, let me start listening to it. Let's see what it says. So I'm not going to break down the cycle and everything because there's just resources everywhere. There's free resources, there are podcasts talking about the 4 seasons of the cycle, how, like, breaking all those weeks down. So if you're brand new to this, go to the website under free, like learn more, free, and then you're going to see the courses aligned with Womb Wisdom, like all the free stuff on there and all the podcasts. They break down everything about the menstrual cycle. So I'm not going to break down how, like, what each season is and like what it represents, okay? I want you guys to do that on your own time and sit with it. Understand that if you start to understand there are 4 seasons in your cycle, your body is changing every week. of the month. I'm not talking about Google Calendar month. I'm talking about your body's calendar. This is why I created the cyclical living planner, because every one of us, if you have a womb, you have a ticking clock, meaning like you are your own carrier of time. So every day you wake up different. Every week you wake up different because your hormones are shifting. So that means your energy levels are shifting. That means that the way that you're eating has to change. The whole notion of bulk prepping and like it just doesn't work long term, because your body is a living, breathing, highly intelligent being, okay? So if you're constantly shifting like the earth, right? The weather patterns, these are all like ways that the earth regulates herself. Same thing with our bodies. It's ways that our bodies regulate. So, hello, Tracy. I am now paying attention to my body and trusting that she's guiding me best. Yes, of course. Mahalo. Yeah, and even if you're menopause, pre-menopause, post-menopause, like that, or hysterectomy, like all these things, right? We think like we're just like, whatever, this conversation doesn't pertain to me. And I'm not talking about you, Tracy. I know you know that better. But that's not true. Even if you have physically removed the uterus, it's like removing your thyroid and thinking that you're not gonna have a throat, and you're not. Okay, now I'm not responsible for the things that I say. Like, this is how. And I only say that because, again, we've been so misinformed, and the whole thing is just so distorted, right? So these are the examples that I'm giving to start, like, to create these connections again, be like, whoa, like, seriously, I'm not even exaggerating, right? So even if you took out the uterus, or if you're post-menopause, like, you still have the energy in your body. That sacral chakra is still there and will forever be there. And you're still responsible for it. You just have graduated, or you have gone on to the next phase, right? So there's just so much wisdom in this whole thing, and it's just so beautiful every single phase of the way, from beginning to the very, very end. Okay, so let's go back to using your cycle as a way to as a health indicator. Okay, so you have your 4 seasons, and if you start to learn your 4 seasons, your life is going to make sense. Legit. Like, before I knew that, my life didn't make sense. Now I know that, my life makes more sense. Okay? I'm not saying that everything's pretty and pink and rainbows and perfect. It couldn't be further from the truth, right? That's not true. But what I'm saying is, things start to click. And let me tell you something. When things don't make sense, when we don't know the 4 seasons of our cycle, we're just living every day as if we were a man, and we're not living in a fluctuating body of energy, then we're a lot more prone to exhaustion, adrenal fatigue, just a lot of things that happen. I don't even want to say these words, because then it's like you get X'd out of, these platforms, but like your health deteriorates, legit, straight up, okay? Because you're not flowing with your hormonal cycle. When you start to understand the 4 seasons of your cycle and you live in accordance to them, your whole relationship to your body will shift, because you will now start to understand why you're living and waking up the way you do every day. A lot of women lately have been talking about how premenses in our fall, the luteal phase, post-ovulation, how that phase is so difficult for them, premenses, right before you bleed. Whether it's 3 days before, 7 days before, if you have a disconnection to your body and you're just like not really feeling well with your womb space, it might even start 10 days before you bleed, okay? Like, that's just the nature of it, okay? That's the time where the deepest medicine will come through you if you are receptive to do so, to receive so. I'm not going to go into that because that's what I talk about in the podcast. But basically, like, your life will start to make sense, and your relation to your body, your relationship to your body and the food that you eat. Food is huge. Food is such a big component for women. A relationship to food. Why it's been so distorted. All of that comes back to the womb space. If you don't honor your womb, you're not going to honor the relationship to your body. The womb is the feminine. It's the figure. It's the physical, right? So, and what feeds the physical? Food, right? A relationship to the earth. All of these things will start to transform once we honor our cycles and understand what our cycle is for. Any questions? I hope I'm not just like getting too mystical and stuff, yeah? Okay. Now I'm going to talk about, too, just really quickly, the importance of understanding how to work out according to your cycle. And I'm not going to talk too much about this because, again, I feel like I'm always talking about it. But the reason why I've created the classes I've created is because they sync to your cycle. That's why there's 4. There's 4 formats because one goes with every week. Knowing that, does that mean that you cannot take bar cardio when you are bleeding? Of course not. Again, this whole thing is about you coming back to your body's wisdom. When we start to allow our body to direct us and to speak to us and guide us in our every moment, the more that we can, right? The more we're going to find balance and overall health in our life. And your body's going to naturally activate these self-healing abilities, okay? So working out according to your cycle is really important because some of you ladies are coming in or taking classes online and perhaps you're taking a cardio workout where my focus is like, bring it up, like bring it all the way through. And meanwhile, you might be like in your inner fall, right? That time of the month where you're just like not feeling good. You don't like your body. You're upset at life. You're mad with everyone. And then you're like, fuck that. You know, I'm just going to take a cardio class. That's like the worst thing you can do. It's the worst thing that you can do. Now, does that mean you're not allowed to take cardio class? No, sometimes I want to take a cardio class because I know that there's so much emotion in my body. I'm processing so much. I'm like, I got to get it out. Let me do mountain climbers and plank. Let me do, you know, so, but I know that and I'm listening to my body in that moment, right? But if you don't know that and you use movement as a way to punish your body as opposed to use it as a medicine to help your body move through the weeks and the seasons, it can become very distorted. And that's the same thing that's happened with food. Food and movement, and I'm only seeing this now, that's why like my whole background is in food and in movement, okay? I only realize this now looking back that, oh, like our relationship to food and our relationship to movement is basically our relationship to our bodies. And if we are disconnected to our bodies, we're going to be disconnected to the way that we move and work out, and we're going to be disconnected to the food that we eat. That's just what it is. So again, that's why it's really important to start coming back, learning what phase you're in, understanding your body, understanding your menstrual cycle, trusting the wisdom, the profound and infinite wisdom, even if you're not into that kind of stuff. Like, understand that your menstrual cycle has such a huge role in your overall well-being. And if you are not taking that into consideration, it's really gonna hurt you. It's probably already hurting you because it's going to affect your relationships, your emotions, your well-being. Just, yeah. Not only that, but it's also going to affect your energy centers, your solar plexus, your heart space, your throat chakra most especially. Questions? Okay, I want to give you ladies some tools in case you are interested in educating yourself a little bit more, or like diving a little bit deeper into this topic. Of course, you can always DM me. But yeah, this whole space, right? Like this whole space, I'm calling it now just a womb portal. That's just what it is. Like wombs coming together, talking and healing the womb space, and understanding why that's so important. And maybe like you're like, I still don't get it, right? It's the center of our universe and our bodies and the universe. Okay, so I'm going to give you some really simple tools. One, I already mentioned: go to the Grounding Ascension podcast, listen to the podcast about menstrual cycles, listen to the podcast about the divine feminine, understand a little bit of the wisdom and the energy behind all that. That's why I kept it today like really on the surface, because the amount of content I've created around this is just like, I don't know how much more I can create. But I'm still doing it and I still love it, so it's all good. Okay, aside from that, free courses in the podcast. Cycle tracking, ladies. Like, I have the cyclical living planner. If you don't want to use that, just learn your cycles with the free courses. You find a way to use your planner. I have some girls, we did the cyclical living for entrepreneurs recently, and you know, you put a bunch of entrepreneurs together in a space, and like the ideas are like out of this world, incredible genius, right? So she's like, yeah, I just have a whole Google Calendar just for my menstrual cycle, and that's how I break it down. I'm like, great, right? Find a way to figure out when are you in what phase, and how you can start organizing your life around that energy. It's going to change your dynamic of the way you move, the way you eat, the way you live, the way you speak, everything, because you're going to come back to something so deeply wise, so deeply infinite inside you. Okay? If you are post-menopause, obviously you can't do that. But it's the simple practice of every day coming back to your body and asking yourself, how do I feel? What do I need? What is authentic to me today? A lot of women in postmenopause will follow the moon cycle. And so you follow the 28 days of the moon cycle. Obviously, I'm not in a postmenopausal body, so I don't have an opinion on that. But what I can say is trust your intuition. If you try that and it doesn't resonate, it doesn't resonate. If you try that and it's like some kind of magic, you're like, what is going on? Keep it, right? That's all I can tell you. But there's also a lot of postmenopausal women doing this work, so maybe that's a good thing to look into. Okay, obviously energy healing. If you're not sure about what is going on in your body with your womb, if you have a lot of stagnation, I know acupuncture is amazing for that. I know body work is amazing. You need to start moving the energy around your womb space, like number one priority, like beyond everything else. If you are on birth control, manipulating your period, or have turned off your cycles, or just don't have them for whatever reason, you need to move that energy now. Like, there needs to be body work, there needs to be abdominal massage, there needs to be yoni steaming, obviously. That's why I have yoni steaming here. You need to bring in a way to move energy and move the stagnation. That is priority. I also do that via energy healing sessions, where we work in the womb space and we figure out what's going on and we restructure some of that space. So energy healing is also good for that. And then there's some herbal teas that you can drink that I have here from Rainbow Bliss. She's trained in traditional Chinese medicine, and it's just teas to support your menstrual cycle, right? The teas that I've created with butterfly pea and rose and chamomile, and I'm bringing in some new ones with some new herbal blends. It's all made, these plants are made to support you on many levels, most importantly on the feminine level, on the menstrual cycle, in the womb. So there's a lot of resources, there's a lot of tools, there's a lot of places you can start to tap into this information so that you can come back, activate your body's wisdom, understand, okay? And understand that if you want it to go natural, there's more than enough options for you to get off birth control if it's not supporting you, or if you just feel the call. A lot of you ladies are walking in here, they're like, I don't know, I kind of feel the call to just take out this IUD, or like just start to feel what it feels like to have a natural cycle. That's because the feminine is awakening in the whole earth, right? So like, it's the feminine that's going to birth the new generations and the new realities. And so we need more women that are connected to their womb space. And so if you're feeling that call, trust it. Trust it. That's your intuition waking up and telling you exactly what to do. Okay? And in that process, you're going to need a natural way of tracking your birth control, right? Like, you need natural birth control. You need to understand your cycle. You need to have herbs on hand that will support the process of you being in relationships, right? Being active in relationships. So I have all of that. And if you don't want to go through me, there's tons of resources all over the place. They're there. Don't think that they're, you see, my thing was that I didn't know that they were there. Nobody told me that there was resources. Nobody told me that there was a way of natural birth control. Nobody told me that there were herbs that you can rely on, that women have done since the beginning of time. They have had a relationship with the land and with flowers and plants and herbs that help them support the process of quite literal natural birth control and everything that's needed for women, okay? So everything exists. It's just a matter of you coming back to this place of empowerment and saying, this is my body. I get to figure out what it wants to tell me, and I'm going to explore this funnel of wisdom, okay? So freaking excited about it all. Oh, and then lastly, on Sunday, Chloe from Rainbow Bliss is coming in to do a workshop on natural contraception. That's exactly this is all we're talking about, right? Natural birth control, herbs and allies that can help you in that process. Why does this have to do with what we're talking about? Most of you who are manipulating or controlling or Xing out your cycle, it's a lot of times it's just out of fear because we don't have the resources. So my job is to tell you there's resources so that you can not only feel supported, but you can feel so empowered in coming back into your body. And so empowered in saying like, wow, I get to figure out what this whole cycle thing is, and I get to let my body find balance in that process, which is so exciting. It's so exciting. And it's so beautiful. There's nothing more beautiful than a woman coming back to the wisdom of her body, to let it speak to her and allow yourself to learn from your own cycle. So I think that's all I have for you today. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you have any questions that come up or you want to continue this conversation, please let me know. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Cheers. Love you.